Now, this video may seem a little lackluster and clutterbucket than the ramblings of a lunatic schizophrenic. Well, that's because I had another video planned, but it got delayed. But you'll probably see it next week. What makes What makes media good? Hello, everyone. Ren here, or Alias, and today I shall talk about this theorem I have thought of, the entertainment triangle. Now, depending on the media that you watch, this triangle is gonna shift. But I've come to the conclusion that all media that you consume has three main parts that make it entertaining. The first one is the story. The second one is the action. Action I'll go more in depth later. And the third part is to that medium specifically. Like for video games, it will be gameplay. For movies, it will be pacing. For news, it will be how informative it actually is. Let's go with the first part, story. Story is the main plot. We all know what a story is. It has a beginning, middle, and end. It has some characters. It has to have characters in it, and it has to, be, and it doesn't have to be entertaining, but the better ones usually are. So that's what the story is. It's the main thing that you go see. Next up, it's action. I don't know what else to call it but action, but it changes depending on the genre. Of course, if you play an action game like Elden Ring, the action is what's important. But if you play something like Ace Attorney, where the game doesn't have too much action, the action will be the investigation and then the trial. Then on a movie, like, yeah, if you see John Wick, you're gonna see the action. You're going there to see all the action and the cool gunfights. If you go see something like Hereditary, the action will be on how scared it makes you. Story, action, and then the last thing is media specific. I'm only gonna talk about movies and video games because that's like the biggest two medias that exist. So it's either pacing for movies, which is incredibly important, or gameplay for video games, that is also incredibly important. A bad pacing can kill a good movie, like immediately. Like it can be the best movie if it's paced like shit. It doesn't. It doesn't. It'll be really hard to get. A video game, if it has really bad gameplay, if the gameplay does not feel too fun, then the game is gonna suffer a lot. Now that I've gone through the basics, I've noticed that as long as any medium hyper focuses on two, the medium will be really good. So, for movies, I'm gonna use an example. The John Wick movies. The story is okay. I'm gonna use John Wick 1 in case it comes in the trilogy, because I feel like 1 has like the most non-story out of all of them before they add all the wacky shit later on. Also, the cigarette is here, so I don't accidentally drop it with my hand. John Wick is out for revenge for the people that stole his car and killed his dog, because they were like a mafia boss, and everybody's scared of John Wick because he's fucking the Giga Chad. Now the story, it's not too good on the first movie at least. It's just a revenge story. They kill my dog. He kills everybody else. What carries it is the pacing and the action. It has really good pacing. The action scenes are long enough for you not to feel overdrawn, and the actual action is insane. All the long shots with all the wide camera angles where it's no like jump cut, shaky camera like on Taken. It's just pure action, and that's an example of a movie that can lack a good story, but has good pacing and good action. A movie that has a good story and good action, it will be a good story and good action, but bad pacing. It will be, in my opinion, Star Wars Episode 4. I've seen all of the Star Wars movie. I binged them all one time because my buddy was mad that I hadn't seen anyone, single one of them, and I watched all of them. And I gotta tell you, the old movies, the pacing is like bad. It's not good. The story is intriguing enough that you can see it through. The first people you meet is Vader, Leia, C-3PO, and R2D2. And from then it's just really slow. Like there's a lot of talking, there's a lot of walking. It's pretty chill. But the story's pretty good. Even the ending, like the famous use the force look. It was done really good. Like the pacing was really bad, but everything else was pretty good. And that's example of a movie with like bad pacing with the other two. Movies that have a good story and good pacing but bad action are the movies that are more of the slow cook movies. Something like Dune falls into this category. Dune is fantastic, and it's a political drama. It's a political drama movie. So what would be action will be the drama, but it feels, at least when I saw the movie, that there wasn't a lot of it. It felt like, even though the movie was almost 3 hours long, it felt short. That's my only complaint about it, that there wasn't enough action. But as you can see, a movie with a good story and good pacing, but almost no action, can still be a masterpiece. Video games. Video games, as I mentioned before, are story, action, and then gameplay. Now, a lot of games fall into the first category, where the story is okay or not too good. Then it has good action and good gameplay, because that's what video games are. Video games are just like mostly gameplay. The first example that comes to my mind is one of the most famous games of all time, the Mario game. Like the story's not that deep. Mario just wants to, stump turtles and get the princess. That's it. That's the whole story. But the gameplay is so fun that it has like transcended all time. A game with a good story, good gameplay, but bad action will be one of those story-driven games that Naughty Dog likes to make. Something like The Last of Us or Uncharted. Those games have fantastic stories, the best stories you'll ever see, and the gameplay is really satisfying, especially the Last of Us gameplay. It is insane how good it can be, but the action is kind of all over the place. There'll be some times where you have this really intense like gunfight, and it's really well done, and there are another times where it's just like an endless barrage of enemies that are kind of just plopped in randomly. But The Last of Us doesn't have that problem. Doesn't have that problem too much. Uncharted does a little bit more. The Last of Us 2 does it better, like the action and the gameplay, but the story's so bad that I don't like that game at all. So that's the example of a game that has a good story, good gameplay, but bad action. A game with a good story, good action, and bad gameplay will be something like Silent Hill 2. Silent Hill 2 is one of the best horror games of all time. I should recommend you watch a playthrough, because the gameplay of Silent Hill 2, it's really bad. It's really clunky. It's not too much fun. In my opinion, like on the remake that they're making, I one of the best things they can do is fix the gameplay. Your character moves like he broke his knees, and you just like move clunkily around. And I know that can add to the horror element, because he's not a super soldier. He's not your Call of Duty protagonist. He's just a guy that showed up to the Silent Hill town. But it is an extremely good story. Highly recommend. If you can get through the gameplay, then I recommend you play it yourself. If not, just watch a playthrough. It should be fine. Now, the reason why I gave all these examples was because it's to show that on the entertainment triangle, as long as you do decent on the two, the media will be good. And the best media are the ones that have, that did all full three triangles. Like, I know this is gonna sound like a fucking meme, but, uh, Puss in Boots. Puss in Boots has a really good story. It is really well paced, and it has really good action. That movie it's so fun to watch. I could watch it any day. It's a fantastic movie, and I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. And now, a video game that has all three triangles on my eyes, would be Persona 5 Royal. Because even though Breath of the Wild is my favorite video game, like, ever, the final boss is okay, which is what it makes it suffer, in my eyes. But on Persona 5 Royal, if you like, if you ever played it, the whole story is good. The whole game is paced really well because the balance of like high school life and mementos is so fun to balance. There's never a dull moment in Persona 5. There's never a dull moment in Persona 5, and that's why they've been milking it since it came out like 2016, 2015. They have not said a word about Persona 6, but they have released like 10 Persona 5s since then. So, that's a video game that will like be talked about for ages. That will be talked about for ages. Those are the landmark video games. You know, your Portal 2's, Breath of the Wild, Halo, Halo and Call of Duty are also what changed, the gaming landscape on online multiplayer. That has been the entertainment triangle. Put the triangle to any movie that you like, and you'll find out that the reason you like it is because it fills one of those three categories. Well, this has been all. This has been Ren, or Alias. Bye bye.